It's not what this podcast should do. It's what this podcast wants to do. Welcome, everyone, to Super Audio Robo Podcast Z. I'm Ark, that's Neff, and this is the show where we recommend you the finest mecha contents for your cultural and artistic development.
And today we're going back to manga land with this one. That's right.
And this will be the last one that we talk about. We only have so many episodes left.
Yeah.
But this one being a manga is pretty important because this is Linebarrels of Iron. This is a rather interesting super robot story, to say the least. Part of it due to, I guess, the reasoning behind why we're going with the manga source material itself instead of its anime adaptation.
Yeah, as we're going to get into later, the anime has a reputation to it that I still remember. Not a good reputation.
But we assure you this version we're talking about has a good reputation.
Yeah.
So then I guess that's as good a time as any to move into our synopsis, explain the plot of what Linebarrels of Iron is all about. Koichi Hayase has always dreamed of being a hero, a daydream he uses to escape from the constant bullying he's endured throughout childhood. One day on a class trip, an artificial satellite fell on top of him, and when he awoke from his coma, it turned him from a timid child to an arrogant tough guy that sought to assert his strength over those around him. 3 years after the incident, the truth was revealed. A giant robot called Linebarrel revealed itself as the source of Koichi's accident, and that he had been chosen as its pilot. Now the young boy has to adjust his attitude and work with other Machina pilots known as Factors to protect the world as an ally of justice. So who's looking forward to a super robot story where the guy that you're supposed to root for has to stop being a dick?
Yeah, that's kind of like the first few volumes is, hey, stop being an asshole.
Yeah, you gotta work with people. You gotta save the world. Important shit. So I guess next on the docket is like the prehistory then.
Get into that.
So, Linebarrels of Iron is a super robot manga written by Eiichi Shimizu and illustrated by Tomohiro Shimoguchi. It's a mangaka duo, one that has essentially stuck together since like the mid-90s after they had met and graduated from technical school. This is one of those rare like manga duos where you know, it's two people that each have like their own specialties and are basically like they're pretty much in sync on like what the ideas are for the stories that they want to create. And from what I've been able to find, at least just to confirm, I believe this one is like their first major serialized work. So the manga first started in the magazine Champion Red on December 19, 2004. A seinen manga magazine, I should clarify. This is not going to be one of those like kind of widespread like Shonen Jump or adjacent manga magazines that are more geared towards young or teenage boys. Like this is very much like a magazine for works geared more towards adults. But yeah, it was first serialized at the end of 2004, and it would continue all the way to April 18th, 2015. Total, like a running total of like 122 chapters, which would then later be compiled in like 25 tankobon volume releases. So we got a pretty big story here, especially compared, I think, to like some of the past mecha like manga that we talked about on this podcast. But for like 10 plus years, Linebarrels was basically like the main thing that Shimizu and Shimoguchi were working on, and like as their first major like serialized manga work. It established a lot of like what sort of like themes and like aspects of genre fiction that they were very fond of, and if you take notice of them, you then proceed to look at some of their other works that they did like around or after it, and you realize, oh yeah, these are fans of super robots and like pretty much all hero adjacent like fiction. You know, like they like to take advantage of, you know, like the familiar like tropes and stylings of like those old works that they grew up with, while like kind of like twisting them and making them kind of more mature based on like, you know, the nature of the story they're creating, since it's, you know, for a more adult oriented demographic. And certainly taking advantage of like the medium that they're working in, with this being manga instead of anime. Like Shimoguchi's art style occasionally can be a bit messy and hard to read during certain action sequences, but is otherwise very distinct in like its like level of detail and like kind of dynamic framing of shots and things like that. That said, though, I can say that the anime adaptation did not fare as well compared to what the manga was presenting, because this is where I think, like, in the grand scheme of, like, kind of giant robot fandom, if you were to, like, start an internet discussion and just say Linebarrels of Iron without really specifying which version, you're probably going to get people that recognize it first for the anime, which was an adaptation made in 2008. I swear this was not intended based on the Full Metal Panic episode that we did last week, but this is a Studio Gonzo production. And this is more in line, I guess, with what we tend to think of when we speak about Studio Gonzo and Hush Tones.
So would you call this a Full Metal Alchemist situation where they didn't have enough material?
I feel like it's similar. Maybe it differs in some ways because, well, I don't know, because it's been a while since I've been made familiar with anything to do with, like, the original anime version of Full Metal Alchemist. Because a lot of what the anime's problems were, on top of the fact that it's a very shoddy looking, like, production, you know, in terms of, like, what budget they have, it goes beyond the fact that the manga was still ongoing at this time and certain story elements had not been revealed. Well, I guess actually it kind of stems from that, because, like, the result is that they just completely reinterpret certain characters and just, like, change a lot of, like, the different motivations. I don't know. It's a whole mess of shit that's kind of, like, difficult to get into right now. Probably better until if it's for later in the podcast. But it is the sort of thing where, you know, with the manga at this time being ongoing and the fact that, like, an anime had happened and, you know, generally speaking, more eyes tend to be drawn towards anime instead of manga. That just tends to be how it is. I guess this is also, in this case, this is a good time to get into our Super Robot Wars quota for the podcast. Because they actually realized as much that this situation was kind of fucked. Yeah, you had, like, what was essentially an ongoing manga that was actually, like, very well received and had readers interested because of its stories and characters, followed by, like, an anime that basically toned a lot of things down and, like, changed a lot of characterization and story beats because they did not have the full scope of the story and had to, like, go off in a completely different direction by the time the second half rolled around. So it's essentially two different stories with the same name, and Super Robot Wars solved that over the course of several years by, initially, for the DS game, Super Robot Wars L, they used the anime continuity for that particular game. Then on the 3DS with Super Robot Wars UX, they decided to base it on the manga, while still utilizing, like, character portraits, voice actors, and even music from the anime, just because, like, honestly, that works fine enough. I think if that already exists, let's reappropriate it for, like, the manga source material. But yes, this just goes to show again that it's like the Super Robot Wars team, they are big-ass nerds and huge fucking geniuses when it comes to this shit. Remember, these are the people that managed to, like, make Shin Asuka an actually functional character.
Yeah.
and like, make sense of all the Seed Destiny crap.
They know what they're doing. These are, like, fans of these works that are, like, that find clever ways to put them into their crossover game.
But yes, that's basically how Super Robot Wars approached it and tried to, like, basically, you know, throw a bone to both sides of the series, least of all because I think, like, the manga especially deserves like, a lot of recognition. Like, yes, the anime was something of a middling production, but it did not, you know, do anything to really, like, impact Shimizu and Shimaguchi's, like, work and progress on the source material, because, you know, it did continue. It was still being published in Champion Red, and they did finish it. And like, following that is, I would say this is when that duo started to get work on, like, other properties that they could do manga of that I think to a certain degree might have eclipsed Linebarrels, like, in terms of, like, recognition at this point. Because there are two manga that they worked on following this, like, in the 2010s. The first was Ultraman. Like, it's just simply called Ultraman. You all at home might have heard of this maybe in passing, but it was essentially them making their own alternate universe sequel to, like, the very original Ultraman TV, like, tokusatsu show. But the other thing they did, and is certainly more relevant to the both of us, don't know if you've read it, but I have, they would make a new Getter Robo manga, the first major story to like gain traction following the passing of Ken Ishikawa, called Getter Robo Devolution, the last 3 seconds of the universe.
I know about it, but I haven't gotten around to reading it.
I'd say it's really good. It's dealing with like very different interpretations of like the Getter Robo characters. If you are familiar with the kind of story that like these two dudes are like very fond of and like clearly pay homage within their stories, you know, from with what they did with Linebarrels as well as Ultraman. The same applies to Getter Robo Devolution, like the characterization, mecha designs, the way that they frame the action, especially to kind of highlight that these robots are fucking gigantic. It's funny, like in fact, even when I was like thinking about what sort of things would be worth putting on the list for this podcast, I had half a mind to possibly get us to like read Devolution, especially since it's like only 5 volumes. Compared to Linebarrels, it is a significantly smaller story. But I also felt like as far as Getter Robo representation, we already, I think, had everything important covered as far as like, you know, the OG manga and the best anime that Getter Robo has ever received.
I think we're good on like Getter Robo representation, and Linebarrels is probably more important.
Yeah, as a work that like establishes what Shimizu and Shimaguchi were capable of, I absolutely think that's the case. It's just that I wish whenever you search Linebarrels of Iron on Google that it would actually be more willing to bring up like the specific manga information instead of just defaulting to what was established in the anime decades ago. That's whatever. Yeah, this was a prehistory that was clearly more focused on like the on the creators themselves. And even then, I think a lot of what we'll have to say about Linebarrels will kind of loop its way back to these two and kind of explaining, you know, some more of like those sensibilities, especially when it comes to characterization. But I mean, like, I guess even before then, we could get into primary mecha and start talking about some pretty rad fucking robot designs.
We got some really good ones here.
Like, if you ever want another reason for why we love super robots in particular, it's a great opportunity. It is a great canvas that provides room for just really bold and striking designs that are one of a kind. I think even before describing these individual ones, we got to get out of the way like what type of robots they are and the kind of rules that they abide by. And like our primary mecha are the machina. Or machinae, I guess how it's described, like machinae for plural. But a single one of these super robots is referred to as a machina. Giant fucking super robots, like roughly I think like 20 meters in height on average. Some can be a bit taller, some shorter. I guess the best way I could describe it is very like sleek yet bulky at the same time. It's kind of hard to describe because like those words are almost like you would almost assume that they're kind of like opposite to each other. But we are dealing with robots that, you know, they do not resemble anything like the 70s super robots you might be familiar with. These are robots where their design sensibilities are clearly born out of like what like Japanese people in the 2000s thought was cool. I guess get someone on board as far as like describing these. I may have like my own personal like issues with like say the Zone of the Enders games, you know, as games overall. But I dig the hell out of the orbital frame designs, and I think Linebarrels Machina, they kind of strike a similar itch as far as like the visual sensibilities, just, you know, lacking the obvious you know, thing down there.
Yeah, they're very Zone of the Enders actually in design and like just how sleek they look as well.
And willing to get out there in like some very odd designs that like are no longer humanoid, but they still manage to qualify as like being the same kind of robots because of like just their abilities that they have, as well as other mysterious qualities that, as you read the story, start to reveal like a lot more terrifying truths about what the machina are. But you can at least get a sense from early on that like these are robots that have, like, underneath all of, like, that hard metal exterior and weapons, like, some manner of, like, will, like, a lingering sentience that is, like, you know, like, locked behind it. And that is because the Machina are hyper advanced machines. I guess like this is the main rule that they have. By themselves, they cannot kill humans. They are not allowed to kill humans, or so much as like let any human that is like directly in their vicinity that they may be partially responsible for them dying or getting hurt. Like they have to make sure that they survive at all costs. Unless, of course, they have a pilot known as a factor, which is essentially chosen by a machina most of the time after, like, said human has, like, come close to, like, has, like, either died or had, like, a near-death experience that they need to be saved by, like, getting injected with the machina's nanomachines. It's a very weird image when you see it, especially in later volumes, where it's like, oh, they just straight up have, like, mechanical wire tendrils that will just stab you in order to pump you with nanomachines to save your life. I mean, like, they're keeping you alive, but it's like a pretty horrific image either way. But it's the sort of thing where once a factor is in play, that is basically the one time you can get a machina to actually like kill other humans, because it will be doing so like at the commands of like the factor that is piloting it. They have some manner of like more modern like weapons and modifications applied to them by the main characters, but these are robots that like their base form clearly existed like some indeterminate amount of time before the start of the story, and then that's how they still have some amount of mystery to them. So as far as specific machina models that you see in the story, we obviously have the titular one known as Linebarrel, not only the titular mecha of the manga itself, but also, you know, the most powerful, assuming that you can get someone that actually is able to use it to its full extent because of just all its latent abilities. But it's otherwise like a very humanoid looking robot, like big shoulder pads, big legs, like its head, best to describe is like having a long neck. It's like the face and the neck are kind of like almost merged together in a way where it looks kind of almost like thimble shape, I guess you could say. But that's the kind of the head shape it has, with two horns, and like the last most distinct, I guess, like aspect of its physical appearance is its tail, which is more like a stabilizer is kind of what they refer to it as. Like when you look at the full size of it, you almost would think it's like a third leg or something that is designed to hold it up like a tripod. I mean, like these may be super robots because, I mean, the shit they're able to pull off kind of defies any definition of real. But there is still some aspects of like some amount of realism. The idea is like, okay, this design, the way that it is shaped, it would probably be way too top heavy. That it's like that with some of its weapons, it's got to have like an extra like back fin type of thing to act as a stabilizer. But at least the cooler thing about that stabilizer is that it actually like acts as like a storage compartment for some of its extra weapons and functions. One of them, well, we'll talk about a bit more in like the spoiler section, but like needless to say, it has a beam weapon. And the way it's introduced is kind of a big deal because the person that decides to use that beam weapon doesn't use it for its intended purpose at all.
We'll definitely get to that eventually.
Also important to note, as far as like what makes Linebarrel distinct and like potentially more powerful than all the other ones, is that it has like its own like super powered like overdrive mode, as they call it. Literally turns like the exterior of it like jet black and like gets all kinds of like extra like heightened mobility features and whatnot. And typically, the rule when it comes to Machina with it having factors is that they typically only have one. You know, is the idea is that if you're chosen as the factor for a Machina, like it's for your personal use, it can't be used by anyone else. Linebarrel's the exception because it technically has two. But I mean, the main character that you follow through most of the story is going to be using it for the vast majority of it anyway, so it still might as well be like exclusively his. It's just that like the secondary pilot has like a particular history that like also ties into like the creation of Linebarrel from like well before the start of the story. The other Machina that are worth talking about are not necessarily as strong or well-rounded as Linebarrel, but they have like other traits about them that make them pretty cool. One of which I am especially fond of is Verdant.
Oh, the Verdant is pretty cool, actually.
Similar look to the line barrel on the like at a glance, except you realize it doesn't really have like the tail stabilizer that line barrel has, and has only one horn instead of two. Also, it technically has like even though it looks like it has two eyes, its right one is actually disabled. So like it technically is operating with a blind spot. But that doesn't matter because what it has are, it has what is called variable binders, essentially big like coffin shaped looking like sword sheaths that are arranged and attached in a way that they can like extend and fold up like wings.
Which is just a really nice visual. It gives it a very distinct look that makes it like stand out from Line Barrel.
And it's like, there's a lot of people out there that when they think of giant robots that they really like, most of the time, they'll probably get like a kick out of a robot that is just nothing but like an overwhelming amount of guns, like heavy arms from Gundam Wing, for instance, understandable. Yeah. I could get the appeal of that because that's a level of ridiculous that tickles a lot of people's fancy. Verdant, I feel, is designed to really appeal to like the opposite side, where someone thinks that the coolest robot is the one that has a fuck ton of swords.
Yeah.
Because when I'm talking about these variable binders, there's like 8 of them. And in each of those binders, they hold 2 apiece. There are so many fucking swords on this thing.
It's the heavy arms of swords is what it is.
Yeah, with really sleek futuristic giant robots like blades that they're swords that look like the high frequency blade from Metal Gear.
Oh yeah, it absolutely has that like look to them.
Remaining machina we have to talk about. One of them does not really abide by any sort of humanoid shape in the slightest, and that is called Deceive. Best way I could describe this is imagine if it's like a football with like a bottom fin that just like hovers around and is not really built for combat, not in the same way that Line Barrel and Verdant are. What it has that's unique to it is that this is a 2-seater machina, which does not mean that it has 2 factors. It's more that it has 1 factor, and then like that factor's sibling is like a co-pilot. Yeah. It is very much a machina that is designed for a support role in battle. But that doesn't stop it from being terrifying because of its signature attack called the Nerve Crack. Basically, giant tendrils that if they get a hold of your robot, because of how piloting robots, not just machina, but also like kind of smaller mass-produced robots called armas are designed to work, is that they're supposed to be kind of like a neural link between pilot and machine. So the Nerve Crack takes advantage of that in a very horrifying way by sending all kinds of horrific electrical signals to your brain that you start hallucinating that you're dying in extremely gruesome, horrific ways.
It is kind of terrifying just having all those images implanted in your mind and you're thinking, oh no, my guts are spilling out of what am I going to do?
Yeah, and it's like, no, man, you're just hallucinating. That really is like kind of like the best that Deceive is really capable of. I mean, the Nerve Cracks themselves, like they're tendrils that can be kind of manipulated either way, and it's still sort of dangerous because even if it doesn't make contact in a way that it can like cause an enemy pilot to hallucinate, they're still tendrils. Yeah. They can still be used to bind someone up if necessary and hold them down. It's an interesting design, to say the least. I do like that with how many like machina there are, of which there's like about like a dozen, I believe it is 12 or 13. I'm kind of forgetting since it has been like a few years since I like read the story in full, but it is the sort of thing where you see like every single machina that they introduce, and it's like maybe this is just by projection. But I feel like the creators of this almost maybe they started with just how making as many cool robot designs as they could and then worked out a story around it, because that's what I would do. They have made enough robot designs with these machina to like fill out the roster for their own virtual on game.
I can believe it. Like, these seem like the people who made this manga are huge robot nerds, and they probably did something like that, or they had like a lot of designs and they're like, oh, but which one should we use? And
these machina, that's as far as I'm willing to go as far as like talking about them. You basically get introduced to them like as part of like basically like, the beginning story arc of the manga. So like I'd say it's like it gives you a good taste of like what the designs and like capabilities of the machina in this manga are all about. So with mecha out of the way, we got to get into primary characters.
Yeah, let's.
With we got a doozy of a protagonist. The protagonist I ultimately like because I've obviously read the entire story.
Yeah.
So we have Mr. Ally of Justice himself, Koichi Hayase.
Man, why don't you talk about him a bit?
All right, so. This obviously pulls from what I'd already written in the synopsis. Koichi used to be a sweet boy.
Yeah.
He used to. Until the incident of what was essentially a giant robot getting dropped on him.
Yeah.
Like it's obviously meant to be like kind of like tragic, least of all because, he was being bullied prior to it and basically on a trip was essentially being pushed around to being like, hey, just go off into like some corner of this area and like don't bother us, you're an eyesore. But that's obviously what led to like that entire accident, technically died. Actually, but because of Linebarrel choosing him as his factor in order to save his life, woke up from a coma later, infused with nanomachines, feeling better than he had ever been, and for the following 3 years, went from being the bullied to the bully itself, or at least the revenge bully, because he just picks fights with like other people that he sees as bad, which is mostly just other like middle school delinquents, and that's on top of the other like delinquents at his own middle school that he's basically got under his thumb because he's asserted himself as the strongest. He's kind of an asshole. This is a classic case of like an unlikable protagonist by design, where the story clearly frames it that he is not a good person. It does not try to hide it. He has childhood friends that have seen this transformation in him and do not like it because of how it is like completely tearing apart their friendship.
He is once he changes, he becomes that friend who's suddenly like all arrogant and like thinks he's better than everybody. And okay, to the manga's credit, it's definitely you're not supposed to look at it like a good thing. You're supposed to like kind of think he sucks.
And like part of what makes that framing work is that like Koichi by himself without Linebarrel is really shown to only be good at like asserting his strength over one type of person, and that's other like bullies and delinquents. When it comes to like freakish androids, or even when he is in Linebarrel, when it comes to fighting against other Machina pilots, he is still very outclassed starting out. But like everything just kind of is born out of what used to be a genuine desire before eventually getting warped and twisted by his new adolescent attitude of wanting to be a hero, an ally of justice, which is like what the common translation tends to be for like how the manga describes it. Like, I imagine if Linebarrels had ever gotten like an official like localization for its manga, they probably, I don't know, maybe they would have stuck with that, or maybe they would have tried to simplify it down to hero because it's kind of the same thing. But the problem that you find is that despite that daydream is that Koichi's clearly not actually living up to the idea of what an ally of justice is. It takes some amount of tragedies and being humbled that like he starts having to work with other people, like other factors like him, in order to protect the world from like an evil organization that is like from the outsider's perspective seems just like a case of general world conquest. I generally find that like as difficult as it might be to kind of like see what Koichi is doing, especially in the first volume, it still pays to have some amount of faith in like what the author is setting up.
Yeah.
I do think, ironically, like for all like the changes and like middling stuff to do with like the anime production, weirdly enough, I think the anime actually got this one part right. No matter the version, be it the source material or anime, Koichi is still an asshole starting out. He's not meant to be likable.
Yeah.
But which is where like you get like some amount of growing for him, which like that's fine. There are stories out there where you can make a character or a cast of characters have like very serious unlikable flaws about them.
Yeah.
I've read Scott Pilgrim. I know what it's like.
Yeah. There's always that worry when you make a character who is unlikable on purpose, and there's the they're terrible, but the story doesn't really show how terrible they are or are as bad at showing it, and just comes off as like justifying their actions. Those are like the worst kind, I think.
Yeah, I totally get it. It's like it's the difference between like condemning and condoning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as like they make it clear that no, you're not supposed to like this guy.
That said, though, I do still kind of get a kick out of him beating the shit out of like all of his bullies in like the past 3 years, trying to like get one over on him. But that's just because it's like they're bullies. It's like just they're equally bad.
Yeah.
But so it's like I'll just root for the guy who happens to have a giant robot.
Yeah.
But at least like that those tendencies do not carry over when he becomes Linebarrel's like factor full time and is actually working with the heroes, as it were.
Yeah.
Other heroes, which include our primary like heroine, Emi Kizaki. For the first few volumes, you're not really sure what to make of her because she very much comes off as like a very mysterious woman that is like in the background, kind of observing Koichi. She is someone that actually is tied to Linebarrel as its other factor. You could say she was kind of there at the moment when Linebarrel crashed on Koichi.
Yeah.
And there's some amount of guilt, which kind of goes away after a point when after like the first couple volumes of her shadowing him, she basically comes to the conclusion that all of us are thinking that early on in the story, he is the worst. Like, she does not like him.
No.
Like, when she sees that this is what he is doing with, like, the power he has been given. But it does take, like, some warming up after a while. Like, what sort of tragedies that Koichi goes through and how, like, at the end of the day, Linebarrel ultimately sides more with Koichi as its primary factors. That, like, she's kind of more, like, in a support role. And also has more depth to her past that kind of goes into very big spoiler territory. But it's the sort of thing where, like, yes, as you might imagine, she is very much framed as like I guess like the primary love interest for Koichi.
Yeah.
Which takes a long time to even be acknowledged because like Koichi, like despite being like a teenager, near the end of junior high, He's still got to have some of that like protagonist density to like his brain.
Yeah.
Doesn't quite get when like some characters clearly have the hots for him. He's just trying to like just go through his life as he likes, being an ally of justice. Other characters to talk about. We already talked about Koichi and Emi, which are the factors for Linebarrel. Verdant, like all these major machina have their own like factors as well. Verdant has one, and that is Reiji Moritsugu. Personality-wise, complete, like, tonal opposite from how Koichi is.
Yeah.
Like, with their introduction, you can see how there's, like, a bit of a rivalry that is, like, set up between them as factors.
Yeah.
Reiji is quite an interesting character because of he exemplifies the type of factor who clearly has, like, a lot of experience, like, piloting his machina and is, like, much more invested in like the overall mission of like the heroes of like protecting the world, even though like he is very moody looking, extremely pragmatic, and like not very empathetic when like talking with other people. Like he's much more like direct and to the point about like what needs to be done, even if like he has to like say some harsh things to get to it. And he also lacks the ability to feel pain, which is like the exact kind of like edgy 2000s Chuni like type of ability you could have. Except, I mean, when you get into his backstory, you realize that it shows that when he was in his youth, he and Koichi kind of not that different in terms of wanting to be a hero, but just going about it in the completely wrong way.
Yeah, the moment I saw that I can't feel any pain, I was like, oh, you motherfuckers, this is like the most edgy, like 2000 era thing you could have done for this guy.
And it turns out, kind of like with how it frames Koichi's, like, newfound strength to like fight against his bullies, making him look like an asshole. As it turns out, when you're a kid who realizes that they cannot feel pain, you forget about the fact that no pain does not mean no death.
Yeah.
And you can still get really fucked up trying to pick fights with like with bullies and thugs in the name of being an ally of justice.
Yeah.
Like that particular phrase, as you find going through the story, is a very common reoccurring thing that applies to more than just Koichi.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult at the same time when talking about these characters, because to really get into the extent of like what their full characters are would require me talking about like late story elements that completely, spoil major events. But you just kind of have to, just have faith in the author that yes, these characters get major development and growth to the point where it's like you even see like believable shifts in their personalities, and in some cases some characters' allegiances. Reiji is not immune to any of these changes if you read through the entire manga. With Koichi, Emi, Reiji, as well as like multiple other like factors that are part of the plot, they are all united under the banner of Juda, which is like on the surface a big pharmaceutical company that doubles as like its own paramilitary organization, and it is led by Kunio Ishigami, the manager that is a bit of an oddball at times, even though he is very serious and dedicated to Juda's like mission statement. This dude's fucking weird.
He's
like there's some enigmatic nature to him. He has talks with like politicians and stuff regarding like what, like not just Judah but like the Japanese government, what they're going to be doing about like these current events and making sure that like like the world, like the stability of the world is preserved. But he's also willing to like pull pranks or just like give orders to people in the way that comes off as like, hey man, could you do me a solid? I feel like Kunio Ishigami, like one thing that like that always stuck with me is that it's particularly with his dynamic with Koichi, since he's like the newest factor to basically join their ranks, and obviously has a lot of like mental and emotional issues that he needs to sort out because he's been living hhis life as an asshole for 3 years. Ishigami, I feel, takes a page out of Goto's playbook from Path Labor. The SV2 captain, where he's not like as deadpan resting bitch face like Goto is. He's capable of smiling, but he definitely carries himself in a way where you don't entirely know what he's thinking, and he's clearly like he's using his words in a way to like goad or coerce like the people under him. If he has to give them an order that they initially don't think is agreeable, he'll like create scenarios to set them up in a way where it is like they'll agree to it in a way where they're convinced that them agreeing to follow that order is entirely of their own volition and not because they were told to. Koichi is very much that kind of person where he needs to get coerced into that because of like another recurring phrase that goes on throughout the manga where it's not about what you should do, it's what you want to do. And Ishigami needs to keep giving Koichi a lot of scenarios where he can finally accept that being an ally of justice is not something that he should do since he has this power. He needs to actively want to do that. A weirdo, but ultimately an effective leader.
Yeah, he's definitely like what the narrative needed. Somebody who could just like also humble Koichi in a lot of ways as well.
Definitely. As well as, like kind of like give similar talks and like, like wisdom to like all the other members of Judah that are going to be participating in the like in their various operations as they fight against the Kato organization, a mysterious shadowy group which as part of its backstory was apparently responsible for like sparking the flames of World War II. Which the way I read it, like, and how like it's phrased doesn't make me think, oh, they did not just orchestrate events so that Japan would get involved in it somehow. No, I'm pretty sure that they were involved in every aspect of like every major country fighting each other in the 40s. I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
I believe it. Sure. This is the kind of manga where that,
because they definitely had their hands in like a lot of pies and like kind of making sure that like their influence was felt. And now the Kato organization has basically come into the public limelight thanks to its current leader, Hisataka Kato, who is otherwise like very dedicated to his own mission statement that is like trying to essentially reach the same conclusion that Judah is, that Ishigami is like trying to strive for. It's just that they go about it with different methods. Kato's methods primarily being that, hey, we're just going to resort to like full-on terrorism, because for both of these organizations, Ishigami like has Judah, which has its own stable of factors that pilot Machina. Kato has the same as well. He has his own like core captains that like are a mix of actual factors piloting their own Machina, as well as like other people that they are not factors, but they do get customized armas that are able to at least like stand toe to toe most of the time with like another Machina. And all of it is basically in the name of them, like the way they describe that Kato describes it is trying to like get people, like everyone in the world, to imagine and like use their imagination and predict the future, like, which is like a very vague, like almost pretentious high concept type of thing. But really, like, the way it can be boiled down is that he wants people to not be living their lives in like such a mundane, like unambitious way where they're like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go through the motions, you know, wake up, eat breakfast, go to work, all that stuff. He's like, no, he wants people to actually imagine what life will be. At least of all, like, imagine that, oh, like, I could die, I could wake up tomorrow dead, you know? That sort of thing. That's what him and his organization are essentially trying to promote. You know, and like combined with like the stuff that they do early on in the story, they are resorting to full-blown terrorism. But trust me when I say this, there is actually like a greater meaning behind them doing this, even though their methods are completely fucked.
I'll take your word for it. As I should probably mention, as of now, I have not read through the entire story yet. So some things are still a surprise to me, but yes.
Yeah, with like such a big story, like as you would imagine, there are so many fucking characters. Like a good number of other characters we can like save for like when they show up, like in our spoiler discussion for obvious reasons. It's just these are the ones that felt like the most important to get out of the way, since they're especially ones that you'll remember the most. So, why do we recommend Linebarrels of Iron?
Yes.
Or I guess in this particular case, why do I recommend it?
Why do you recommend this arc?
It's definitely weird thinking about Linebarrels of Iron just because of like the kind of the weird spot it is in terms of its recognition, you know? Like this mangaka duo, they've gotten official like translations for like some of their manga after this, like Ultraman and Get a Robo Devolution. And obviously, like, when the subject of Linebarrels of Iron comes up, like, most information that is out there on the internet and readily available is usually tied to the rather mediocre anime. But despite the baggage, like, I'd say Linebarrels of Iron is a work that still deserves to be looked at, because robot manga is already quite rare enough compared to robot anime. But I think what makes it work is that, like, the story that they have created, I think is like one of the better. It is one of the better tales of like a super robot story that is particularly like geared towards adults, you know, because like this is getting back to like the matter of like the magazine that it was like serialized in, and the fact that like these gender demographics that Japan has like do kind of like make a big fucking deal as far as like what sort of like topics or like nuance that like stories might have. This being like an seinen manga, part of it is kind of influenced by the fact that it's that a good number of like manga from the 70s and 80s that would qualify as shonen by today's standards would probably be seen as like, nah, actually these are for adults. What the fuck were we thinking?
Yeah, really.
So at least with Linebarrels, it's like more upfront about that out the gate, and like really does a good job of presenting like a huge complex cast of characters that have like not only like their motivations, but also the fact that they're willing to kind of like change their motivations, allegiances, attitudes as the story goes on, and still have like some pretty important themes kind of like binding them together. Mainly the idea of like what great power does to someone when it is thrust upon them. Because like we talked about it this much with like Koichi's character, that, you know, he very much received great power and then proceeded to use it like an asshole. But as you go through the story, you find out like, oh, there are other characters that in the past had like a somewhat similar scenario and had to learn things the hard way, or other characters that get introduced halfway through and are suddenly like thrust into a similar situation, but because they have their own unique mental issues, it starts to unravel in like other horrifying ways. And part of it, I think, actually comes from like I guess with the reasoning behind like why like why the creators of Linebarrel settled on making the characters this way for their story. This was like from an interview from that I remember seeing on Anime News Network from like a few years ago. And it was them basically talking about like kind of the difference between like Japanese heroes versus Western heroes in terms of like their starting age.
Right.
Like if you look at like Western comic book superheroes, most of them like by the time that they are fully like aware of like what their powers are or when they receive them, they are grown ass adults.
Yeah.
Like they have what is like essentially like a full self-awareness of who they are and what the world is and how it works, that they're able to kind of like make more, like most of the time, make more mature, level-headed like decisions about how they want to use that power. Like even with something like, even when you get into stuff with like Peter Parker, with Spider-Man, it's like that's almost the exception, considering that it's like, depending on the story, you might have Peter Parker get bit by a spider when he's still in high school, but most of the time his stories are going to be like when he's already college age or already into adulthood. Japan, with a lot of its stories that have some amount of heroism, tends to lean more towards teenagers, because what they describe is that because they lack that self-awareness and maturity, that leads to like stories, you can get away more with stories where they actually have to contend with like, kind of a lot of like those raging emotions that you get during adolescence, and like having to learn to grow into your responsibilities more.
Yeah, like there's a lot of I have noticed like whenever they delve into it, there's a lot of just like growing up and learning what it's like to be an adult with responsibility now, and just how do you use that now? What do you do with that new like sense of responsibility?
Which is definitely something that like you see Koichi basically like initially struggle with and grow into like across all 25 volumes, and it's like really good to see. And that's obviously not getting into some of the fucking buck wild plot twists that happen in the second half
of which
the plot twists that were not possible like in the anime because they were not put into print yet when it was being made. Oh man, it really does make it all the more annoying, like now that I've read the full manga, that just the one anime that Linebarrels has is like just so mediocre because of how like it's not just that it has to adapt of like a fraction of the story. It's just everything I've said regarding like the character personalities, motivations, and like the fact that like this was a seinen manga magazine that this was running in, and how that like impacts like the story and audience expectations. That is all completely shifted in the anime, where the characters feel so much more black and white, and like the progression of the story feels much more akin to what you would to like if you're trying to sell this to like a shonen demographic. That's like that's basically the thing that fucking kills it.
Yeah, I've definitely heard like for years, whenever people talk about Linebarrels of Iron, the anime, they were like, oh yeah, that joke kind of sucked. It was kind of mid.
But yeah, it might seem out of character to for us to use why we recommend to not recommend something, but it is very warranted in this case. Like, I would really like it if like knowledge of like the manga specific story details were like more at the forefront of like whenever like discussions or even like searching for info about Linebarrels was just like more prevalent compared to the anime info, which has basically been cemented in like on the internet for like years at this point. Even worse is just thinking, man, like you brought up Full Metal Alchemist, and like and making me think about, wow, it's honestly a miracle that series was able to like give like a second chance to anime by like making Brotherhood and actually like doing like a proper adaptation of like the entire original story. At this point in 2025 and beyond, Linebarrels of Iron sure isn't gonna fucking get that.
Maybe
I wish it did.
maybe one day someone's going to be like, let's redo Line Barrels of Iron, but I feel like that's a more impossible task because it doesn't have, unfortunately, it does not have the pull that Full Metal Alchemist does, or even like Hunter x Hunter.
Like, no studio or director with like an unreasonable amount of cash is going to come forward and be, I am going to commission 4 consecutive seasons for a faithful adaptation of Lion Barrels of Iron, and you cannot stop me.
I want to see that because I bet some of these fights would look amazing animated, but oh well.
Yeah. But hey, at least even if it's not like official like translation and distribution, as far as where to read Line Barrels of Iron, thankfully you could basically look this up on your like online manga reader of choice, where you get all of like your unofficial like translations, scanlations and whatnot, and it's basically on there. So yeah, it's a case of sailing the high seas technically, but I mean, whatever. I feel like it's safe to say that like most people that know how to use the internet and have an interest in anime and manga know where to go for like where they want to read their manga online. It's like all the chapters are on there and translated. It's fine. So yeah, just go there and read it, especially because now it is time to get into into the other half of the show.
Yeah, where we get into our spoiler discussion.
A highlight discussion instead of a full one, because we would have had to make an entire separate episode just to, I think, cover all 25 volumes. So we're instead going to cover like a small bit at the beginning because it's different from some of the other highlight discussions where we would just pick something out of like the middle where, you know, like a real highlight. But I think like the opening story arc of the manga is already enough of a highlight itself. Least of all because if you're still not convinced to read this, especially because of a certain main character and his personality possibly turning you off, stick around and like you listen to us talk on the other side, and we show you, oh no, actually, this character's like his story is actually deserved. You'll see.
We'll find a way to convince you to read this.
Yeah. So either read it now or just stick around and listen to us talk about like the first few volumes. See you then.
See you then. Hey, also, are we going to mention the other thing, the thing you told me that happens in a later volume here? Or do you want to keep that as a surprise for people?
Wait till the very end.
Okay, wait till the very end if you want to hear the most batshit like twist that Ark has told me about this manga.
Yeah, but until then, we're gonna get into detail about the first 16 chapters. This was a case where like I was hoping when I was rereading this that it would only just be the first 3 volumes. Hell, even prior to this, like we initially were planning to like do the first 6 volumes because I mean like these are still like less than 200 pages per. Would not have been too bad, but I think just for the sake of time and like our other obligations, I think just focusing on like an initial story arc that has like a clear stopping point would work better. Yeah. So we're going with the first 3 volumes plus the first chapter of volume 4. Not the best ending, but whatever, it works. I wish the distribution of chapters was slightly better, just slightly.
It could have been a little more elegant, but that's what we're working with here.
So we start at the very beginning, where the manga barely dedicates any time. Like, I think less than 10, maybe 15 pages of showing how miserable Koichi's life was before he gained the power of revenge bullying. It really is uncomfortable, though, all the same. Like, I guess another thing that kind of shows, if not for manga, then I think any seinen, like, you know, adult male-oriented, like, stories in Japan in general, is the difference in showing, like, what kids are like in school. Because adults, I think, have the more realistic and like harsh truth answer to that, and that is kids are miserable little shits.
Yeah,
they are merciless fucking bullies, and Koichi is on the receiving end of this when he is in elementary school. Until Line Barrel crashes on top of him, wakes up from his death coma, and then becomes like, now I'm the bully. Yeah. Now I'm the strong one. And it's by design, because you're not supposed to like what he is now.
No, it's only like a few chapters, but the intro really gets across how unlikable Coach Koichi has become. He's become so
Yeah.
obsessed with becoming stronger, and you see how it's like it's pushing his friends away from him.
Like, in a sense, you could almost say that, his previous childhood friends, Risako and Yajima, are almost more the main characters in this situation.
Yeah.
Like, just try to be, like, just trying to find any way to get their boy to, like, just go back to normal. Well, even then, I think normal is a bit of a stretch, least of all because they are already middle schoolers. And as things go on during this first volume, it becomes clear that a lot of the frustrations that Risako and Yajima are having with Koichi also kind of extend to like some romantic tensions.
Yeah.
But at least like within these first few chapters, it's important to note, I said as much in the non-spoiler section, but like Koichi's only really a tough guy when it comes to other students his age, because his encounter with some freaky looking androids is like the first step in like getting him to like not just immediately solve all his problems by like just beating it to a pulp. He actually has to like, well, not only have Yajima come in to help him, but they take a lesson from old Joseph Joestar. Run away!
Run away! It almost never fails, except what it kind of does here.
Yeah. That said, though, when it comes to the androids, I have to ask, what fucking psycho in this universe managed to get the idea approved of, okay, so these androids, I want them to have mouths that can open so that they can bite you like a zombie.
I don't know.
Who approved that?
Who approved that? Why'd you make zombie androids? Oh,
yeah.
Someone who just really likes horror movies.
Yeah, because surprise, Yajima gets a fucking chunk torn out of his shoulder. It's not pretty. But at least like the androids eventually get scared away with the introduction of a robot dropping down from the sky, which Koichi immediately recognizes that, oh, it wasn't the, quote, artificial satellite that fell on him. He recognized the face. It was that robot. And, like, Linebarrel's intro dropping in, like, in the night sky is, like, it doesn't do anything to fight. It just shows up and has its presence scare the androids away before it leaves itself. But, like, one thing that is very common in this manga is that, like, whenever a machina is summoned, usually in the form of it, dropping down from the sky, it is always framed in the coolest fucking way. Like, this makes such a strong first impression. Yeah. Alas, after that moment, Koichi's back to his arrogant self. Considering, like, the whole incident of getting chased by, like, zombie-biting androids, he is just very curious now about that robot, because it's like, it came to his aid. That's how he sees it.
Yeah.
So he's like, if it came to help him, like, instinctually, then surely he could, like, summon it on command.
Oh,
so he so he leaves school early, goes to the riverside, and just shouts one word. Come. All right, it didn't come, but we got Arma showing up instead to give Koichi trouble.
I'm sorry, I have the fucking brain of a 13-year-old. Oh.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah,
and we'll not linger on that any longer.
He doesn't say that phrase over and over and over again. It becomes much more restrained.
Yes.
It's just made to be kind of funny because he is like standing on like the riverside, holding his hands up like he's trying to receive a fucking spirit bomb.
Yeah. Well, it's not the worst thing that could happen to him. Well, it kind of is right now.
Because like these like smaller mecha, these armas show up to try and capture Koichi. Linebarrel finally shows up. Koichi gets in its cockpit, and oh boy, does he get like the biggest like rush of power in his head that you see. I'm gonna say, as far as like his like tough guy attitude this early on, this is where it gets like it's absolutely like most disgusting, because Yajima is there to like outright call him out on it. Like Koichi's reasoning is like mostly due out of the fact that because he was bullied so much as a kid, that now that he has power, like the way he says it, he clearly does not realize that it is like absolutely untrue, is that he wants to be the one to actually do the protecting this time instead of having Yajima be the one to bail him out all the time. Like that's definitely part of the reason why like their relationship was strained, because it's like, oh well, now that I don't need to be protected all the time, is like I can be better than you. And Yajima is like, fucking appalled by this, to say the least, as he watches Linebarrel just curb stomp the shit out of like these smaller robots. Like his speech that he gives is very on point. Why would you go this far for power? Is this your reason? All I can see is you bullying the weak.
Ugh.
And like that final phrase is like it is on a full page panel of like Linebarrel just like standing atop like one leg on top delinquent style on like the crumpled body of like another Arma, which just shows that like oh yeah, Koichi is his whole ally of justice daydream. He is not living it. He is living something else. And that is why a new Machina shows up to put him in his fucking place. It's our first major like Machina fight of the story. Linebarrel versus Verdant. Koichi versus Moritsugi. And it's as one-sided as it ever could be.
Also, it's funny, like, I am an ally of justice. It's a phrase that's also going to be said like later near the end as well, but they have like but it has a different meaning here. It feels a lot more like villainous is the way I put it, because it's like you're just using that as an excuse to cause all this violence. So it's a good thing there's someone here to put him in his place.
It definitely would have looked bad if the story did not go out of its way to show that yes, there are people that are stronger than our supposed hero, and like it's enough of a bad beatdown following this where it is like Koichi kind of gets to a point where he goes, nah, you know what? Fuck that robot. I don't actually need it anymore, because he's like, he just wants to preserve what little pride he has left. But it's at this point as the volume nears its end that you see a lot of different pieces like moving into play, like a mysterious girl transferring to his class who's actually Emi Kizaki. He doesn't know it yet, but like she's obviously there to like keep an eye on Koichi since he is technically a factor, and Judah is definitely trying to like get an assessment on his abilities and like hopefully recruit him to their side. So like it's actually at this point that you get to see like more of like the stuff that's going on at Judah, like a lot of like kind of like mock battles and training being done by various characters. And like as that's all happening while Koichi is like still trying to like nurse his pride, like just like hanging out on the rooftop, this is like kind of like the big moment where it is like, okay, he's still a dick in this case, but considering who he's curb stomping in this case, I am like willing to let it slide. And that is basically every past bully and delinquent that either terrorized Koichi as a kid, or like he basically had a run in and like kick the shit out of them during his middle school days, being like, Koichi, you've been doing pretty good for yourself. Too good, in fact, like because this is with his so-called friends, big air quotes, that all decide to like have an entire army basically gang up him on the rooftop, but then he just like wrecks their shit. Emmy watches it, and she is like, "This is my assessment. He's the absolute worst."
Yeah, I feel like what helps in these like first few like chapters is, or at least this first volume is, as bad as Koichi is, these villains are not really any better. They've been doing it to other people, including him.
Yeah, one of them at least, Furuya, is going to get actually kind of better as it goes on, like as hard as it might be to believe. But then again, Koichi is our main character who's supposed to become a better person as things go on.
Yeah.
Kind of gets back to how like this is a story that is meant to be much more mature and show, people do change. Yeah. That is just the natural thing. Not everything stays like completely black and white for the sake of like, dramatic tension in a story.
Yeah.
So what happens after this at night is the start of the real tragedies.
Oh boy.
After everything that's gone on, Yajima's kind of had enough. And it's also making it even harder for Risako because it's like, because even he's starting to talk with her less, like the whole, like that childhood friend trio feels like that they're just like drifting further and further apart because of Koichi's bullshit. That Yajima challenges him to a fight in the rain, all while their true feelings come out. True adolescence right there.
I love a good like fist fight in the rain, even if it's very one-sided one here.
Yeah, because Yajima is like not wanting to give up, trying to like get that one fight to where he can show that like, no, I like you are not stronger than me. and mainly getting out like the other core issue that is like pulling apart their friend group, and that is the fact that like Risako has had a crush on Koichi, and she's obviously upset by the fact that he is behaving this way. Yajima, like, his issue is not just that he is seeing the kid that he always would like stand up for and protect during their elementary school days like turn into such an asshole, but also he actually had a crush on Risako and is in this unfortunate position where it is like, she didn't choose me, she chose you, and you are being a shit. That's the kind of unfortunate dynamic that they have going on. That when those feelings finally get through and it looks like they're agreeing on something, coming to a truce, they extend hands to shake. In a flash, Rip Yajima, a giant machina fucking crashes into the background. Like the impact causing debris to fly everywhere, that a fucking pole just impales right through him, that he's like bleeding out on his knees, and it's traumatizing Koichi to say the least.
It is a haunting image when you just see the only thing left of him after is just his arm.
Yeah, like the second impact of like the machina that arrives like just blows away the rest of his body. Yeah. But at least not before Yajima at least gives Koichi a speech, telling him that it's like, look, you have this power. You said you wanted to be a hero, an ally of justice. And it's like, with this power, you're only doing what you think you should do, but it's like, what is it you really want to do? This is where it gets back to like the mantra of the series. It's not what you should do, it's what you want to do. And it's like, he knows deep down, even like with all of like this aggro bullshit that Koichi's doing, you know, he still thinks that he wants to be like an ally of justice, that like he tries to give like some last bit of like support, you know, before he gets ultimately killed, to be like, hey, use your power for something good and like do it because you want to. Yeah, like Yajima dies. Judah dispatches two of its machina, the Verdant and Hindkind, to like contain the situation. And we've got a really pissed off Koichi who wants to like kill this fucker for killing his friend. Yeah, that's where the first volume ends. Shit gets real.
It gets wild here.
So moving into volume 2, we got a big ass fucking robot brawl. So we got Linebarrel, which Koichi is piloting. Moritsugu and Yamashita are the pilots of the Verdant and Hindkind, who are arriving on the scene, and they're dealing with what they're calling the Lost Machina, because they're not able to assess if it has a pilot in it yet or anything like that. But as it turns out much later, I'll just say the name of it. The Lost Machina that they're fighting is called Apparition. This fight it gets real messy real quick, because we basically have Koichi that is wanting to destroy this thing as payback, while, you know, like the members of Judah are trying to contain the situation. They're more experienced as machina pilots than Koichi is. That it doesn't take long for them to actually deal the killing blow to the machina itself. It's actually at this point where like it's deliberately ambiguous, I'm going to say, because later on it is very much, I think, revealed that like Apparition is not out of the picture for the rest of the story following this. It actually ends up with a new factor, and who that factor is would probably surprise you. But needless to say, it leads to people kind of theorizing about, it's like, wait, does that machina have a pilot? If not, then how could it kill those people? Because it's technically not supposed to. Yeah. So what happens is that they go straight for the cockpit to disable the machina and presumably kill its factor, which kind of shocks Yamashita, the pilot of Hindkind, because he was not prepared for actually having to kill someone. But that's not what they should be worried about. What they should be worried about is Koichi having his kill stolen out from under him and getting so pissed he is awakening to such new amazing abilities, such as summoning a beam sword via a beam rifle.
God.
This was like the weapon I was talking about that Linebarrel has. It's supposed to be used as a rifle, but Koichi's like mental like state is so enraged right now that the energy output turns the beam into like a super long fucking like beam saber. It's funny, like for beam weaponry in general, like something like this being treated as a huge reveal is certainly unique, you know?
It is very
like beam rifles or beam swords are like such a mundane aspect of like mecha anime like for so many years.
Yeah, I can't think of any other series that I've watched or read where a beam rifle is something terrifying, because usually it's just, oh yeah, he just got a beam sword, okay. But here it's like, nope, you get to see him pull out and go, oh shit, and then him rip a bridge in half with it.
If like the power output was somehow more, I bet you that blade would have cleaved through the fucking planet.
It probably would have.
Like it is long, the blade that it extends out to.
Yeah.
This is line barrel like in a pretty much a berserk state due to Koichi just being so goddamn angry. Basically, like, the way that the battle resolves is, it ties back to that fucking beam sword. The amount of energy it requires basically tuckers him out. Like, that was basically all of, like, the reserve energy that Linebarrel had to function with, pretty much all just used into that singular beam sword strike. So that's how, like, the two Machina from Judah are able to subdue Koichi. The results are pretty devastating. You do get, like, a quick preview of, like, our main antagonists, Kato, basically looking at the destruction, least of all because of, like, that lost Machina just, like, making a scene for itself. And you could already tell right there, it's like, oh yeah, this dude's gonna show up soon, because now that, like, more and more giant robot fights are happening out in the open, the public cannot hide this.
Yeah.
So Koichi wakes up naked at Judah headquarters. It's a funny little nudity shot at Koichi's expense, as you would imagine.
Yeah.
But he does get dressed, given a tour of the place and what the organization's about. You know, Big Pharma, that is actually a paramilitary organization under the surface. And as well as getting a proper introduction to his new boss, Kunio Ishigami, who's quite the oddball, you know?
Yeah.
Like, the scenes you see of him in shadow, you're expecting him to be a Gendo Ikari type of, like, enigmatic prick, but no, he's very open and, like, cordial with his employees. It's very refreshing.
He might be an oddball, but he really rubs it in Koichi's face about how he killed his friend.
Yeah, just really, like, framing it in a way where it's, like, you know, even if, like, from the outside, technically, like, the appearance of that Machina is what killed him, is, like, like, everything leading up to that is technically Koichi's fault because of how he has been, like, pushing his friends apart and just, like, living his life, basically using, like, the newfound strength and talent he's been given for, like, no real, like, meaningful purpose.
Yeah.
He's just doing it for, like, just, like, very short-term self-gratification for his ego. This is why usually, like, I think about how much it's, like I guess this is more of, like, a mini rant as far as kind of the annoyance with, like, I guess, media literacy and criticism from some people, where some people really do not know how to, like, I guess, like, notice the signs or, like, put enough faith in authors to, like, make good on, like, having a protagonist that has very unsavourable qualities, and that, you know, just because they have those doesn't mean it is an endorsement in and of itself.
Yeah, there's
like, I think, like, the first volume does everything it can to show and frame that, yes, what Koichi is doing in all of these situations makes him an asshole. And now we have the second volume here to basically hammer home with, like, important characters basically saying to his face, you have been living your life wrong.
Yeah, you mentioned it way earlier, but it really is the Scott Pilgrim problem, where it's like, no, you're not supposed to cheer for him on. Sometimes characters are flawed, or they have, like, things that are just shitty about them. It's the story is, like, it's not endorsing them, it's condemning them, and it's like, here's the problems they're causing because of their shitty actions, but they're growing. But just like people, they grow and change.
Definitely. So, like, as, like, this meeting with Ishigami is coming to an end, it's like Koichi is basically getting the rundown of what Judah wants from him. And this is very much kind of like the first step in, like, trying to rehabilitate Koichi into being an actual ally of justice instead of the warped, twisted version that he kept pretending he was, because you get more mention about what Judah's enemies are, the Kato organization, and being like, we need heroes to fight the bad guys. If you want to be an ally of justice, why don't you help us fight them? After all, that's what heroes need, right? But like, kind of after getting that explanation, an introduction to new teammates, which prompted a kick in the balls from a particularly ferocious one. Just to give a quick rundown, obviously Reiji Moritsugu is among one of them and is basically kind of like the senior factor out of the group. You do get to see Satoru Yamashita, who I need to say this right now because it had been a while since I had read the manga, I was going back through the chapters again for these show notes. I had forgotten that the translation for the manga made a critical mistake. They misgendered Yamashita. He's actually a boy.
I was wondering about that because like later on they talked about him like he was a boy. I was like, wait, didn't they gender him as a girl?
Because Yamashita, like a lot of the dress code at Judah is that you got to have business suits.
Right.
That's just the rule. You have to look snazzy for like a, for a cool, stylish, like group lineup photo or something. I don't know. But like Yamashita at least gets a slight exception in which he doesn't have to wear the suit, the suit jacket, but still wears the dress shirt and tie and has like shorts on that because of this being a manga that's inked in black and white. It oftentimes looks like a skirt. Like it's very clear with the point with Yamashita is that they're trying to like make that character like make him appear like very like I guess like not explicitly like one gender or the other. It's like I guess androgynous or so, or at the very least just like playing with gender norms in a sense, because he does look like a girl. Even in the anime, he is voiced by a girl, so that complicates things.
Right.
Yeah, but then like the other two pilots that you get introduced here are Shizuna and Izuna, who are twins, fraternal twins that are different genders, but also look. They look similar enough to each other that I guess credit where credit is due. Like, and I think it kind of goes to show that, the misgendering on the translations parts was not anything malicious.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that, no, it is genuinely kind of confusing because I guess like they did not want to have character designs that conform to like obvious masculine or feminine features in a one or the other kind of way.
Right, yeah.
At least with Shizuna and Izuna, I'd say it's easy to tell like who is who, like as far as gender, because Izuna's the boy and has the dress pants, while Shizuna is the girl and has the skirt.
Yeah.
Like that's at least easy to figure out. It's just, I felt bad when I was like looking back through all the character details. I was like, oh fuck, I forgot about Yamashita's gender. God damn it.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate like mistranslation, but at least like you said, at least it's not done out of a malicious reason and it's just a mistake.
Yeah. That's very much what it is.
Yeah.
I mean either way, it's like if you told me it was a girl instead with like boyish designs, it's like I'd still believe it. He really is a character whose appearance does split the difference like almost exact. But yes, it's Shizuna that kicks Koichi in the balls because she thinks he's an asshole and is like trying to get way too friendly with her younger brother. But it's after all that like Koichi has a lot to process from the meeting and is like, fuck it, I'm just going to go home right now. I don't care about this shit. My friend is dead. He clearly needs some time alone, or at least time with people that like aren't going to try and like pile on all this other like bullshit in front of him right now, which is where you get Risako getting a moment to kind of make up for the kind of rough deal she's had in the story up to this point, because Koichi drops by like his classroom, and obviously because the news is already out that Yajima has died, like there's like a flower put on his in a vase on his desk as like a kind of place in remembrance. I mean, after all, there's not really much of a body that they can bury, considering all that was left was an arm. But Risako's actually there to like, kind of like how Yajima was finally able to get through to Koichi to an extent. Risako actually gets her a moment to do the same, mostly by just having a moment to comfort Koichi and just let him be vulnerable for a brief amount of time. Like actually like hugging him, holding his head to her chest, just to kind of like get through this. It's definitely like the closest you see these two get before Risako eventually settles into like Koichi's current friend group and jealous love interest in a comedic sense. Yeah, because she's not going to be involved in like any heavy drama to do with like with Machina and stuff like that. But this tender moment does get interrupted because during this time, Shizuna and Izuna are like they are the pilots. They are the factors for well, at least one of them is the factor for Deceive. They're both piloting it, and they're currently investigating like a situation that turns out to be an ambush by one of the Kato organization's like core captains, Sakuro Sawatari, who's real hot-blooded psycho.
Oh boy, is he! He does some deplorable shit in his first showing.
Yeah, we've already done enough of like putting down Koichi for his bad attitude. Now we're able to move back on to showing, oh no, there are actually villains in this story that are way worse than him.
Oh yeah, nothing says a bad guy is more evil than him just crushing a bunch of innocents.
Yeah, this fucking spiky hair, hot-blooded sideburns looking motherfucker. Yeah. And he's not even a factor. He's just piloting a super custom arma just for him, you know? And which honestly would probably do more than enough for them, considering that Deceive is a machina that's not built for direct combat. And because of the previous incident, basically putting both Verdant and Hindkind at like less than ideal operational capacity, Ishigami is like, all right, I guess it's time for us to call on Mr. Ally of Justice. So Koichi gets a call, gets again coaxed into doing again, it's a case of like the wording and like kind of like the stuff that the Ishigami is showing Koichi to get him to believe that like the order he is given and what he should do is in fact what he wants to do. He wants to be an ally of justice, and what would an ally of justice do in this case? They'd go to someone else's aid. Yeah. So that's what he's gonna do. And God, why does the manga have to make line barrel summoning so goddamn emotionally powerful? Like, it's so consistently good. Yeah. Like, as soon as he makes the decision, like, he summons Line Barrel while echoing, like, the same words that, like, that Yajima had told him before he had died. That, like, yeah, this is what he is going to do. He fucking goes to the scene of the battle and fights Sawatari. Like, we've already made as much mention that this dude is fucking evil because he just took like a passing cable car full of innocent people and crushed it. And like once he got the lowdown what the situation was, he's like, all right, you're a bad guy. Yeah. I'm going to kick your ass. Yeah. And he manages to do it. Like for the most part, he does actually get a little bit of an assist. Sawatari, for a brief moment, starts to see Line Barrel as like a giant demon that is staring him down. It's like a real good fake out that makes you initially think, oh God, is this like a transformation? Yeah. But then you remember, oh no, I talked about Deceive's nerve crack ability and what it does. Yeah. Deceive had already used it to incapacitate like all the small fry like arma that were in the battle. But just because Deceive was in a position where it got pretty heavily damaged, its nerve crack was not out of commission, so it was able to like get Sawatari to start hallucinating when he did not realize it. It's real good. Yeah. I mean, like, Sawatari doesn't die, he retreats from the battle, but like it basically cements, like, as the second volume is nearing its end, that Koichi's now a part of Judah. He now has to abide by the same business suit dress code and all. He talks with Shizuna and Izuna, like thanking them for the help and all that. That he tries to like come up with a system that will help him be able to better differentiate which twin is which. It's funny the way that it is framed is like he gets like a hairpin that he wants to put in what he thinks is Shizuna's like hair, because it's like oh yeah, she's a girl, but accidentally gives it to Izuna, which causes Shizuna to have a complete fucking pratfall. Like again, it's like I said earlier. You could have just looked to see which one had the skirt. Yeah, it's that simple.
Just see, come on, it's not that complicated, my dude.
It's good that Koichi is mellowing out from his revenge bullying tendencies, that you at least get to see him have like his more like goofball moments of like making an actual mistake or getting, or just other kind of stuff that shows that it's like, okay, he did not do something deplorable, but he at least did something that like warranted a slap in the face or something, figuratively. But the most important thing at the end of this volume is that Koichi finally pays his respects to Yajima's grave. Like the whole time, like when he was in his funk, like he wasn't even able to bring himself to like go to the actual makeshift grave memorial site, which was actually at the street where he got impaled and then promptly like got blown away with his arm left behind. But you see that in just the span of 2 volumes, Koichi has already done a lot of growing.
Yeah.
That he is now gone out of his way to like, see his friend at the grave one last time and promise that he's going to grow and do greater things with his power from now on.
Yeah, it's only been like 2 volumes, but he's already like gone through a journey already, kind of.
Yeah.
I appreciate they're showing like, oh yeah, there's some growth to him. Don't worry, we're not done with him yet.
Because the remaining chapters we got to get through, there's definitely a lot more.
Yeah.
Volume 3 does start off fairly light, as in terms of just like not really having any like big action moments. It's just that you get a personal chat between Ishigami and the Prime Minister of Japan about like future plans as far as like what they're going to do with like the secret war that they're having to like keep under wraps and all this shit with the Machina, and kind of the understanding that, sooner or later we are just going to have to come like forth to the public with this information and that this is what's going on. But until that happens, because Koichi keeps noticing Emi, like the transfer student that's been shadowing him, or at least, well, at this point is no longer really shadowing him, because like after his big brawl on the rooftop, she basically made her final assessment and is just like, biding her time at the school before like she can like just transfer out. And Koichi tries to initiate a conversation with her. It does not go well.
No. She's just like,
she's very upfront about just being like, I think you're a piece of shit.
It's like, I do not want to initiate conversation with you. Bye.
Yeah, but at least with Koichi in this case, he's gonna be persistent a bit more, because it's like he doesn't want to just let it end there. He at least wants to clear things up somehow. Least of all because he gets this feeling in the back of his head that it's like, have we met before? Which, as you might imagine, gets elaborated on a hell of a lot later in the story.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure it does.
Yeah. But now, like, the fights are going to start escalating again in this volume, because Koichi, when he goes to chase after Emi and like try to clear things up, he is still getting pestered by his former bully, that he gets challenged by a new and eventually important character. The best side character, I am going to say, Makoto Domyoji. Oh yeah, he makes a hell of a first impression, because he's got charisma.
Oh yeah,
that's what he's got. Yeah, and just the whole reason that he showed up is because Furuya, like the bully that like tried to gang up on Koichi, that just decided to call on an even bigger tough guy to deal with this problem, even though it's like, Bro, you just had to like not be in his presence anymore, and he probably would not try and like pick a fight with you. But no, it's like we're now at a point where it's like, yes, we can now say that the other bully is now in the wrong instead of Koichi. Koichi still has a bit of his cockiness.
He does.
Because like he knows that like he's a factor, he's got super strength. So, and like he goes into this fight even knowing full well that Emi is watching and has a bit of like, oh yeah, I'm gonna show off to her and like let her know that, oh yeah, I'm not a piece of shit, I'm a cool guy. And then he gets kneed in the stomach.
Yeah,
where'd all that strength go, hero?
This is funnier because this is also one thing I always really like, a trope I like, is here's a guy who's really strong, he's just a normal guy who's just really good at fighting. That's all he is.
Yeah, Domyoji is just a dude who like who's able to get one over Koichi because he actually has a semblance of fighting form and stance.
Yeah. Which makes it even funnier when he gets his ass kicked after going, oh yeah, I'm a factor, I'm so special, and then it's like, oh shit, actually you ain't shit. With against someone who knows what they're doing.
But as that fight goes on, there's another more like equally important fight happening, and it's right on like the front steps of Judah HQ. Reiji Moritsugu has his hands full currently because we got another one of the Kato organization's goons, a black samurai called Jack Smith. Like, he makes his entrance with like stealth camouflage that like the androids are able to like suss out, but the androids get their shit wrecked. Reiji challenges Jack one-on-one, and it is here that we get revealed to like his like fucking edgy ability to not feel any pain as he takes one of Jack's katanas head on. Like, not only does he shrug off the injury and like kind of surprise Jack, he then proceeds to just summon Verdance right then and there because he gives no fucks about fair play. He's just going to like wipe everyone out with his unlimited Blade Works robot.
Yeah, it's just like, fucking, I don't give a shit about that. I'm gonna just do what I can to get the advantage.
As the volume goes on, like, we're basically swapping back and forth between both perspectives of these different fights. So like after we see Verdance get summoned and Reiji moving over to like just fucking shit up with his giant robot. We do cut back to Domyoji, who's still clowning on Koichi, and like he strikes a pose that he's making it look like he's about to prepare his own special attack of some sort. But then a bunch of armas from Kato show up directly behind him. To his surprise, the framing is very funny because it makes you think initially, oh fuck, is he with Kato? But then he turns around, it's like, wait, who are those guys?
Yes.
What are these robots doing here? until he realizes that, oh no, Kato shows up because they're trying to take out Koichi. Koichi summons Linebarrel, and the fight basically escalates to like, a robot battle. And Domyoji, he is one of us. He is loving what he sees.
Yeah.
He just goes, forget that previous fight. This is awesome.
Oh wow, giant robots! It's so cool. It's like, you're right. It is cool. It's so cool.
Yeah, like the fight basically then like transitions into like the Armas leading Linebarrel away. Domyoji and Emi are eventually going to like basically try and like follow them in the direction that they're going because Domyoji, like, he wants to see where this fight is going to end. Basically, these two fights that are happening simultaneously, they're going to collide because the whole idea is that they're trying to lure Linebarrel to where Jack Smith is. Too bad Verdant is just fucking everything up because Reiji is showing off all the cool things that it can do, like using its variable binders to surround an Arma and kill them like via an Iron Maiden.
Holy shit.
He literally creates an Iron Maiden with his own wings. That is fucking metal.
That's so fucking cool. Like, holy shit, you could do that? I mean, it makes sense. There's still swords, but Jesus.
And when it becomes clear that Jack Smith's the only one left, it turns out he doesn't need to pilot an Arma like the rest of the the core captains. He is the Arma. He is a black cyborg samurai. Can you get any more 2000s than this?
Oh, it rules, actually.
It's so fucking awesome.
And in case he wasn't awesome enough, he pulls a rules of nature when he blocks the giant mecha with his own katana. It's like, Jesus Christ.
And then, like, as the fight progresses to the end, he grabs one of Verdant's sword and like, swings that fucking thing. That, like, both swords, like, are, like, they clash and then, like, kind of, like, cut through each other. Which kind of, like, ends up demonstrating that, oh, wait, Verdant's swords are so strong that, like, it's actually weak to its own swords. It gets damaged pretty bad, but also so does Jack. Like, the fight gets so fucking crazy that when Koichi finally arrives, like, Reiji obviously says, this is under control, you're not needed. He's not saying that to be a dick. He's saying that because he's right.
Yeah.
Reiji really did have the whole situation on lock. Dude
really
is crazy.
did.
But, like, that fight, as it turns out, like, because of the fact that it was happening directly on Judah property, this was essentially, like the prelude to Kato himself making his grand debut, his full public appearance to the world as he broadcasts the mission declaration of his organization by blowing up an entire goddamn island.
Whoops. I mean, it's one way to make a message.
Basically telling everyone around the world, it's like, the world is ours. We are all going to make you use your imagination and predict the future, predict your futures. And it's like, yeah, that's real threatening. Especially because how the island blew up? Yeah, they took over a fucking, like, satellite weapon that's, like, in orbit that technically belonged to the Americans, but because of the Kato organization's, like, roots and, like, the and like the influence they have, they basically made it so that it's like, oh yeah, that American satellite weapon, that was ours to begin with. You basically had that thing like basically on standby for us to use at this moment. Good job. Yeah, so obviously the Americans realize that what has happened. They basically bought their own crisis and have to request Judah's help in disabling it. Which means, in his usual cheeky manner, Ishigami like explains this to Koichi and politely asks, "Hey, could you go into space, buddy? No big deal."
And it's like, wait, what? I was like, yeah, you gotta go to space now. It's like,
oh yeah, he is beside himself at like just the absurdity of this.
We're at volume 3 of like a 20-volume like manga, and already we're going to space. This is where we're at.
Oh yeah, and as you might imagine, Koichi's still kind of like a bit rebellious, like because like some of these orders, and like mostly because of the fact that it's an American-made weapon, and he kind of thinks, let the Americans handle it. We're Japanese, this isn't our problem. But again, he has to keep getting coaxed into wanting to do what he actually wants as an ally of justice. He basically gets let go from the meeting, and like, I would say by chance, but I also feel like Ishigami probably expected this to happen anyway, that he comes across a conversation between Moritsugu and Yamashita, where Yamashita has been like showing some lingering guilt over like the destruction of like that lost machina, because of the fact that it clearly had to have had a factor, and he's technically a murderer because of that. You know, killing the whatever human was inside it. That like he's kind of upset with how Reiji Moritsugu just like keeps composing himself and is like comes off very uncaring. That this is what tugs at Koichi's heartstrings to be like, all right, fine, I'll do it. Yamashita's also part of this mission. Yeah, we'll do it, just to kind of show that like we are heroes. We're not murderers. So they arrive promptly in America with one of the best displays of getting loud American assholes to shut the fuck up. You just prove to them that you're a giant robot pilot by summoning it right on the spot in front of them.
This is actually where I kind of came around on. Well, this and a later scenes where I came around on Koichi. I was like, okay, fine, that's a fucking hell of a way to make an entrance.
And keeps in line with like how, you know, for this manga, anytime a machina gets summoned, it always has to like be the most striking, impactful thing ever.
Yeah.
So like you get Koichi like as all these like English speaking assholes are like kind of taunting them, because it's like, oh, our heroes are these Japanese kids where you're robots. Then he summons them, like makes them like shocks them all completely, and then says, the first part is framed as him saying it in English, where he goes, "I cannot speak English, so I will tell you this in Japanese. We're here to save your asses."
Which, hell yes, actually.
Like, that is perfect, because it's like, it's both him and Yamashita with like a big damn hero like pose and framing of like with that entire like full page frame. It's like, oh yeah, these guys are gonna save the world. They're still kind of nervous though, Yamashita especially, and they do take the time to bond over hamburgers. And this is where Koichi also has like a funny moment of completely like not noticing this about his own colleagues, much like with the twins. It's actually less about the fact that Yamashita is a boy who looks very feminine. He's more surprised by the fact that he's actually a high schooler, and he's been treating him like a kid.
Oops. Oh,
yeah, it's like, oh shit, you're technically my senpai. Fuck. But eventually, both of these kids are gonna like get their heads like fully focused on what needs to be done. Koichi's a bit like more like settled in like at first. Yamashita, like, he's basically going to be kind of like on the support craft that is going to take Linebarrel itself into space and then launch it towards the satellite weapon so it can like destroy it up close. Yamashita obviously still has like worries about it all the same, but like he kind of mentioned that, you know, like there's like an old grizzled American captain that's on board for this operation that gives him a much needed pep talk.
Yeah, it's like there's nothing like the old grizzled captain to snap you out of your funk. Like giving them a speech about like how that's why he switched to a position where he just saves people now. Instead of taking lives, he's saving lives.
This volume Like this is where it gets to the part where I wish that the final chapter we talk about was actually at the end of volume 3, because this volume ends on one hell of a cliffhanger as the line barrel gets taken into space, launched from the support craft, has to like weave through a shit ton of laser defenses before getting one hell of a sight. The satellite weapon is essentially a big ass arma. It is like you see it and you're like you assume that initially when you hear it's a satellite weapon by the Americans, you're expecting it to look like any other kind of big nuclear powered satellite in any other media. Mm-hmm. No, this thing is fucking massive.
It's big.
So yeah, Koichi's pretty overwhelmed to start as we get into like the first chapter of volume 4. But Ishigami is still there on the comms to make sure that Koichi is gonna pull through. Like this is the next part of like Ishigami's plans in like kind of drilling into Koichi's head what he needs to do as an ally of justice. Now that he's in space, he can see the entire Earth for what it is. Mm-hmm. He now realizes that, oh yeah, this is the thing that you're tasked with protecting. Mm-hmm. This is your burden as an ally of justice. Can you handle it?
Oh, this is the moment.
And he's like, oh yeah, I can handle this. And then remembers that he had that beam weapon from volume 2. Gets to use it for actually something good this time.
Yeah, this is like where it really hits him. And oh boy, are we going to get to how he uses that beam weapon.
Because, like, with how fortified this satellite weapon is, the original plan was that he would have only needed to use that beam sword ability at, like, 50% power. And, like, the assumption is that it would have defeated the satellite weapon and he would have enough energy to make it back to the support craft. But it turns out that, it's not that. It's way too big. He has to go full power. And with that, like, not only is he going to do something that risky, but he is also like fully entrusting Yamashita with getting him home no matter what. Mm-hmm. So he summons that big ass beam sword out of the rifle, swings it, fucking destroys that satellite weapon that, like, from people on Earth that could see it, it looks like a shooting star with like a bunch of stardust trailing off in like all kinds of different directions. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a really spectacular shot. And you get to see, during that moment back on Earth, Risako sees it as a shooting star and starts wishing upon it, hoping for Koichi to confess to her. Sure, girl. Sure. Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think you're going to be waiting a long time.
Yeah, the satellite gets cleaved in half and Line Barrel is now out of power. And this is where both Yamashita and the American captain, you know, like, start doing their part. And, like, really, I do get a kick out of, like, the stuff that the captain is doing this entire mission, because even like the rest of the ship's crew are like, this seems pretty risky, and he's like, fuck that, we can't let these kids like fucking outdo us. They got huge guts, we gotta have the same. We're gonna save that robot. Mm-hmm. And yeah, they basically, like, in atmospheric re-entry, have Heinkind like riding on top of the support craft itself, and then it uses its bullet arms to like catch Line Barrel at a distance and pull it back in so that they can all like together re-enter the Earth's atmosphere without burning up. Mm-hmm. And this is a big reason for why I wish that how the volumes were set up, that volume 3 could have ended with this chapter. Mm-hmm. Because the big shot that you get when Koichi finally returns to Earth after he had done something genuinely good out of his heart and saved the Earth, that you see like all like the Americans at the military base just cheering him on as a hero. That it's like, yeah, this is the moment where after 3 volumes, he is now an ally of justice for real.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that like this couldn't be the end of a volume because it's a perfect bookend to everything, but it's still like a good end, and it just shows like even in like the past like 3 volumes, oh yeah, he's grown, he's learning, and he's actually becoming what he wants to be, like an actual ally of justice now, instead of someone who is just someone with like a child's grasp on like what it means to be strong.
And it goes to show that like, because that's basically out of the way, like as the story goes on, you'll start to get more and more instances of like other characters kind of grasping like with their own versions of that same kind of feeling. But for now, this is like a great victory for like for Koji as like a person and his development, and like what you see him get up to from here on is like he is significantly more well-adjusted. Still some attitude to him here and there, but it's at least understandable enough as like, oh yeah, he's a teenager.
Yeah,
of course he would like have some of that in him. But the chapter does end like its final shot with more scheming from Kato, kind of revealing that he's confident in his long-term plans, that he essentially let Judah win the round with ease, even though it is like, I guess, setting everything up in such a way where it's like the continued use of the satellite weapon is not nearly as important as everything else that he is going to be doing throughout the rest of the story. And you get like a full page spread of like Kato with all of his underlings, all the remaining core captains, like just all posing off, ready to be like, oh yeah, the war is going to start for real. Yeah, Kato versus Judah. Like, where does it go? A lot of fucking places.
Yeah, like, can they mention the twist now, or the thing that happens later?
Yeah, because Kato and Judah, those organizations, like, their methods are different, but their goals technically the same, and that is like the recovery of the machina and like protecting the Earth from what are essentially the human machina, which are like giant robots from the moon that were part of the previous human civilization, because humanity killed itself collectively. That the actual robots then decided that, oh shit, our creators are gone. We need to like rebuild the humanity and restart their history, which like basically resulted in it, like, way you could say it is that humanity's like history gets restarted around the time of like the late 19th century, which is why like near the end of the story an ambassador from the human machina arrives who is just Abraham Lincoln.
It's fucking insane. Like, holy shit. Abraham.
Yes. Because a lot of what Judah and Kato were kind of working towards, Kato had like more of an idea of what it was that they needed to do, and that was, it wasn't just that they needed to get a hold of the machina, but they needed to make sure that not every machina had a factor, because if they did, basically like giving all of them their own pilots is what essentially awakened the signal in the machina that were on the moon to try and like invade the Earth and like end humanity and restart it again or some shit. It is wild, and like it's also, as you might imagine, very different from what it was in the anime, even though there's a lot of similar aspects. Like, it's weird because with the anime, a lot of like the problems it had obviously came from the fact that like it changed a lot of characterization and story beats due to the fact that the original manga was ongoing and they had no idea where it would end. But that wasn't to say they still did not have access to like certain production notes, because you get like a tease. I remember looking this up for the anime. You get a tease of like a giant robot that is actually the for real final antagonist in the manga. And you see that it's like, oh, this is like the most like class, like this is a robot with a for real, like, it has a brave face.
Oh my God.
That's what it has. It literally has a face like a brave robot.
Of course it does.
But if we want to like talk a bit more about like kind of like more spoiler specific differences between anime and manga and how like the production notes kind of went between the two of them, there's actually a very specific character that was first introduced in the anime of all things, but was meant for the manga eventually when her time would come to be introduced, that I think is another big demonstration of just how much the tone between like the two versions of the story are very different, you know, with one being for the worse. And that is a machina factor called Miu Kujo. Like she's a girl that in the anime, I guess funny enough, is voiced by Aya Hirano. So yeah, you have Haruhi Suzumiya in a fucking mecha anime.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
But like the whole thing is that she's like the kind of more like demure, kind of more moe girl of the group itself. Like she has her own like machina called Painkiller that is like almost predictably pink colored in the anime and is like a bit more pacifistic, I guess you could say. Like I said, there were production notes being shared between like the manga and the anime. Like she appeared first in the anime, but like she was always meant to show up in the manga at some point, and she is a much more like mentally unstable character in the manga. Like she is an idol that is suffering through like her own brand of like personal hell and bullying. You know, much like how Koichi kind of was suffering through a lot of bullying when he was an elementary school kid.
Yeah.
That her introduction is Koichi saving her from jumping off a building.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, we had a girl that was like suffering from so much bullying that she was about to commit suicide, got saved by Koichi, that it like she kind of like starts really caring about him and kind of seeing him as her savior. Continues to get bullied in her regular life, that like she ends up finding her way to where a unused machina has been buried, because Judah and Kato are also looking for this one. She happens across it on her own, that she gets turned into a factor before she even dies, because the painkiller basically looked at her mental state and was like, this girl will probably kill herself if left unattended. I need to do something.
Fucking God.
And what it really goes to show is that once she becomes a factor is that she ends up fucking up shit, I think even worse than Koichi did when he first started piloting Linebarrel, because now that she realized that, oh, I'm a factor, I'm just like Koichi, I'll make him proud, I'll fight the bad guys for him, and then proceeds to like fucking cause so much damage, like that Koichi basically has to like pull her out of it, to be like, you idiot, you like, what have you saved? You just destroyed this whole town.
That sounds like that sounds like a lot.
Yeah. We have another character that is like basically another mirror to Koichi, where halfway through the story, after he has gone through so much maturation, now he is the one that is confronted with what is essentially a mirror of him. You know, different circumstances in certain regards, but he is like having to deal with the fact that there's like, you know, like one of the other main characters now is someone that was basically like not too far off from where he was at the start of his story.
Yeah, like you said, it's like a mirror, like just, oh shit, this is how I was, but worse somehow.
Miu is tragic, to say the least, but also it's the sort of thing where like it's certainly like a better version of that character compared to just how like generic, I guess, like she was in the anime when she was introduced there.
Yeah.
Like, again, this is the thing with the manga. Again, with this with its particular demographic being older than like the typical like robot anime fan would be in Japan. It's like this is dealing with some harsh truths and like character flaws, really.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it really good. Like least of all because like the story, you know, goes on for a long time. There's straight up a fucking time skip, like and you get to see other characters like. Besides, like, Miu, I'm just going to say up front, Miu actually changes even more for the worse after the time skip, because the time skip is one where Koichi is out of the picture, actually. So you can imagine how that, like, affects certain characters and, like, they end up changing.
Yeah.
And that even other villains, Kato himself actually has a face turn because of the fact that, yes, we have these machina humans from the moon that are like having beef with like the current cycle of humanity, because you motherfuckers, you basically dug up all of the machina that we buried on Earth and became factors with them when we didn't want it to happen.
Jesus Christ. So much happens.
Yeah, so much happens. So much that is like way more complex than what the anime does, where it's like, oh, it's still technically machines, but it's more like an alternate universe reality of Earth where machines took over and now they're trying to spread out to other universes to assimilate. Like, nothing to do with the fact that, oh, humanity literally killed itself because it lost its imagination and in doing so basically activated a kill switch in its DNA. Like the whole mission statement from Kato was not like some like bizarre thing to do with imagination. It's like, no, imagination is important. It's like, keep dreaming. The moment you stop dreaming is the moment you stop living.
Ooh,
it's a lot.
It's a lot.
I love Linebarrel, but it is a very dense work. And like, if I can like use something like this podcast as a way to like get more people to pay attention to it and not think of the anime, for instance, that's all the better. Like, it deserves it, especially if people out there have already read some of like the other works by this manga duo. You know, like especially if they've read Ultraman or Get a Robo Devolution, like they owe it to themselves to kind of look at the major serialized work that was like the starting point for the kind of stories that these two dudes love to make.
We're just doing our job in like trying to expand everybody's like palette by introducing them to works they probably would not have experienced otherwise.
Yeah, and hopefully you do, because oh boy, I need to see more people talking about the fucking Watchers from Drakengard 1 appearing in this manga. That's literally how the human machina first make their appearances. It's literally like giant floating, like, featureless babies dropping from a hole in the sky.
Jesus Christ, I need to read this myself. I need to read more, actually.
It is so worth it. It definitely is one of those great works where it is like you can feel the length and like the sense of journey, and that for that entire journey it sticks the landing all the way through. Like you do feel a good sense of like so many things have changed from where it started versus where it ended, but like you knew that at the end of the day this was the story they wanted to make and they had the ending in mind. Yeah, this was fun. Thanks for being on, Neff, as always.
Of course, thank you for having me. And
thanks everyone that stuck around this far to listen, especially to all the crazy just bombshells of like plot twists that this manga has, and I decided to mention. Tune in next time for an anime that is similarly long, I guess you could say, a long journey about boy meets girl.
And we'll see you all for that one. Bye, everyone.